Yeah.
So going back between this difference between Web 2 and Web 3, from the user perspective, if the economy is built in a way that makes sense, I mean, you don't need another reason to play. Then there's a chance that you could get rewarded, not only with a great game and with a way to spend your time, but actually with some financial benefits, whether you're lucky or because you play well or because you played smart, you found something that nobody else found.
This content is brought to you by VeChain, which is a leading enterprise-grade Layer 1 public blockchain spearheading a digital revolution from a sustainable, highly scalable smart contract platform. The VeChain blockchain has many unique features, which makes it an ideal choice for Web3 applications. VeChain is working with many great enterprises such as PwC, Givenchy, BMW, and Walmart China. Most recently, they partnered with the Boston Consulting Group to build a revolutionary decentralized application ecosystem. I'm a big believer in this project. I have been since 2018. I've been a VET token holder for years. And this blockchain is highly scalable, great with security and speed, and it has low energy consumption. If you'd like to learn more about VeChain, please visit vchain.org. Link will be in the description.
Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is David Johansson, who's the CEO of MetaKing Studios and the creator of BLOCKLORDS. David, welcome.
Hey, great. Happy to be here and excited to talk about gaming and Web3 in general.
David, I'm very interested in Web3 gaming and how blockchain is integrated. This is something I've been trying to read up more on. So I'm very excited to speak with you to learn about BLOCKLORDS, how you guys are integrating Web3 tech and tokens and blockchain into the gaming environment. Let's start, though, with your background. Where are you from and what's your professional background?
Yeah, so I'm from Sweden and France, grew up all over Europe, went to university in the US, studied film, worked in Hollywood a few years, and ended up in China kind of randomly, but it was a turn of fate that ended up working in my favor. And in China, I got into gaming. So for the last 10 years, I've been making games, which is really the best job and the most challenging job at the same time. It's quite exciting. But yeah, essentially, in the beginning of my career, I was helping a lot of Facebook and mobile games go from the Asian markets to the Western markets, and learned a lot about how to build free-to-play economies that way. This is right as free-to-play was really starting to take off, also in the West. And as I was making games like that, I definitely gravitated towards strategy games. And once I discovered crypto in 2017, with my gaming background, it was kind of a no-brainer. And I've been full-time Web3 gaming since then.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, you mentioned you got into crypto in 2017. What was your first encounter with Bitcoin? I'm always fascinated by folks' stories. Maybe they heard it from a friend on a forum. And what was your aha moment?
Yeah. So definitely had an aha moment, and it's a pretty long process. But I was introduced to it fully in 2017 in the summer there, and I just left my job. I just was over that job and wanted to start my own studio. But just getting, especially then, like 2014, 2015, it was a little easier. But 2017 indie game financing was kind of dead, and my friend was like, "Oh, well, you should look into an ICO." It's like, "What's an ICO?" He's like, "Oh, it's crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin." Sounded buzzwordy, And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And I had heard Bitcoin before, but always, I think, in the context of a joke, right? Never actually looked into it. So based on what he said, I was like, "Oh, an ICO is a." He was like, "Oh, it's like Kickstarter." So I checked it out. And even by then, Kickstarter was kind of dead, right? So
Yeah.
not dead, but it was definitely not what it had been. And I looked into it, and I think I took a LinkedIn course on blockchains, how they worked, just studied a lot about Bitcoin. I think it took like 3-4 days of like studying and really learning. And yeah, at some point it just clicked of like, and I think it was some LinkedIn course, and he had like all these blocks, and he was like physically putting the blocks on top of each other and just showing how immutable it all was, right? And I think that is when it clicked of like, okay, this is real money. Like this works because you send it and it's out of your wallet, it's in someone else's wallet. All those all those nodes, all those miners are verifying it, and it's this self-sustaining network that really supports itself and verifies itself, and you can't cheat, right? That was the main thing. Like
Right.
once you send the money, it's out. Once you receive the money, it's in. And I think that really started it. So that day I bought my first Bitcoin. I think the price was $1,000 then. So, and then saw it go up to, $2,000 or $3,000 in the next few weeks. So it was a very good time to get in. But yeah, after that, there was no going back. Got into ICOs, got into Ethereum, got into smart contracts. Didn't start a company that summer in crypto because I was just too new to it. And I wanted to learn more first, but started in 2018. So it was pretty quick after that.
Oh, that's awesome. And now you have this convergence of your gaming background and crypto Web3 tech / blockchain, right? Tell us about BlockLords and what makes it unique as far as a game.
Yeah, so the original idea back in 2017 is still the same core as it is today, although it's definitely evolved a lot. And the idea was you start with a hero. That hero is an on-chain asset. This was before NFTs were invented. So of course, since then it's become NFTs. So now they're NFTs. You fight for resources, you fight for land, you grow out your farm, you farm for resources, you deck out your hero, you collect several heroes, and you build out your little army. And then if you become powerful enough to actually become a lord or lady, you will earn taxes from players who are farming or fighting or generating wealth in your region, right? So the idea was really to take a feudal economy, feudal economies were very decentralized compared to the economies we have today, right? So that was also kind of following the ethos of blockchain, was having these decentralized feudal economies that are governed different ways, but essentially on-chain, right? And so at the core, that was the idea. And then in terms of gameplay mechanics, a lot of inspirations from games like Total War, Age of Empires, Crusader Kings, really taking my favorite medieval strategy games and then putting them on an MMO economy, which hasn't really been done before. Like games like Game of War did that in a mobile setting, but not like as an MMO, true MMO setting. So that's kind of what we're trying to do as the first big MMO strategy game.
That's awesome. And you mentioned Age of Empires. Man, I spent so many hours playing that game.
Yeah,
In the
no,
early
exactly.
2000s. Yeah. So now I want to make sure that I break this down for the people who are listening who are new to the concept of blockchain gaming, Web3 gaming, and so forth. And what
Yeah.
are the incentives? What are the benefits? And you have the great gameplay and as you outlined, but where does the token and the Web3 tech come into play? And how is that part of the gaming economy?
Yeah, so really with BlockLords, especially because we've been building it over so many years, different iterations of it over a long time, the main thing has always been what do we want out of a token as a game developer? What do users want out of a token? And what do, more passive holders want out of the token? And those are all different things, right? And so essentially, as a user, you want to use the token as a currency, right? You want to use it to buy things you need. What are those things? Well, this could be in-game resources. Those can be in-game heroes. Those can be power structures. It can be titles. It can be cosmetics. It can be battle passes. It can be anything you want. And so essentially, a core part for us is to drive demand for goods inside of the game that the token is then going to be users are going to be able to use the token to actually get those goods, right? And that's why it's very important that we do a lot of testing now because the token hasn't launched, obviously. But what we're doing now is with regular fiat payments is we're doing a lot of testing. For example, our battle passes, which just launched in season 1, which was a couple of months ago, at a $10 price point, but with really a lot of value in it. And I think it's over 80% of our daily active users actually bought the battle pass, right? And so as a game developer, that means that's a success, right? Because you launch a product and most of your users actually want to buy that product. And then the core basic use of the token will be to buy that actually at a discounted rate compared to fiat, right? That's the first thing is like whatever you want to buy with fiat, you'll actually be able to buy it with the token at a discounted rate. That's the first use. Then within the game itself, the token will have utility that nobody else can get, right? So you'll have access to special heroes, you'll have access to special content, and you'll have access to a special resource called influence. And influence is essentially what you use to get more and more and more powerful within the game itself. So that's a very big part of it. Then if we go more into the out of the game sphere and more into the Web3 governance sphere, that's where it gets very interesting too, right? So what we've introduced in our on the website now is the governance mechanic, which we call the provenance. And basically every couple of weeks, users will be able to vote for narrative elements of the game. So we had a vote, the first vote ever that closed last week, which was what is the name of the BLOCKLORDS continent? And they voted for Ethereum, right? So there was a few options, Ethereum, Prospera, and a couple more. And they chose Ethereum, right? And then actually we're going to be weaving that into the game itself. And that goes to narrative, but that's also going to impact other game design and other choices in the future as well. And then, of course, we do have plans for our own layer 2 solution with BLOCKLORDS. And the Lords token will be used to secure and basically help verify those transactions as well.
Now, I got a lot of questions there, and I also want to talk about how this is the changing landscape in the gaming industry, and engaging users and giving them more say in the game, more participation, and so forth. But before we get there, tell us about the LRD token, the tokenomics around it, and which blockchain is it on? Is it Ethereum?
So we haven't fully announced that yet, but yeah, so far from all the options we've looked at, Ethereum does offer the most liquidity, and it's essentially the best game to it's the best chain to maintain value in a token. That said, we are a fully cross-chain project. We currently support IMX and we support Polygon, and we do have plans to support more chains in the future. So we strongly see that users' assets should be fully cross-chain and that they should be able to bridge their assets between different chains. But Ethereum right now is looking like the strongest contender for the token itself.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that you're going to have cross-chain functionality because, like you said, that's important. People are, sometimes part of communities behind different tokens. So if they're into Polygon and other chains, right, to have interoperability, I think is certainly needed and certainly part of the future. So you can bridge the gap between different communities.
And that's our philosophy. Our philosophy is if you like a certain asset or you trust a certain chain, you should be able to bridge your hero there, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's talk about the changing gaming landscape and what you're trying to do here with what would consider Web3 gaming. What's the status of the gaming industry, and do you feel there's been a ramp down in interest in games, but this model could really reinvigorate people to come back into gaming because there's a strong incentive and rewards because of these tokens?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, if you look at Web2 gaming, there's a lot of issues right now, especially in the last couple of years with the ad rules changing with Apple and such, that essentially caused it caused most free-to-play business models to completely fall apart. And it's pretty interesting. What we're seeing now is we're seeing way more funding going into Web3 games than we are seeing towards Web2 games. So actually, there's a big brain drain happening as well between Web2 and Web3. And so if you look at the advantages, well, the advantages for the users, there are many. Essentially, there is the ability to own your assets, which gets overlooked at times or gets some shade at times. I think because it hasn't mattered so much to most users, but there will be a point where it does matter. And it has mattered to the users who have been able, to profit or to sell or to be able to actually eke out a living from their time spent playing. I'm not saying that's why people should play games, but for those people who have been able to pull it off, it has actually meant quite a lot. And there is a lot of interest from users to be able to do that because, I mean, at the end of the day, like jobs are getting harder and harder to get. AI is displacing a lot of people. It's essentially, I like this idea of universal gaming income, right? And I think that's where the world is moving. If you are probably going to have more chances to earn a living in digital ecosystems, in the future than you are in the real world, right? Which is probably a bit sad for some people, but I strongly think that's where we're heading, if we're not already there. But that doesn't mean it should all be, subsidized by the game developers, right? And that's why for us, going back to the token utility for our token specifically, the way we built it is most importantly, I mentioned it, you have to create demand, right? So whatever you give out, you got to give people a reason to spend as well. That's a very important part of it.
Yeah.
So going back between this difference between Web 2 and Web 3, from the user perspective, if the economy is built in a way that makes sense, you don't need another reason to play. Then there's a chance that you could get rewarded, not only with a great game and with a way to spend your time, but actually with some financial benefits, whether you're lucky or because you play well, or because you played smart, you found something that nobody else found. Now, going away from the user and into the developer, there are also some very clear benefits as a developer to go to Web3, because what we've seen, we went with an early access version in September and with a closed beta in June last year. And the amount of users we got about 5,000 users for a closed beta. And now we're up to almost 90,000 users for early access. Retention rate over 50% day one. Those numbers just don't exist in Web 2 game for a game of our stage, which is still early access, still a bit raw. There's a lot to fix. The fact that we're able to get almost 100,000 users, the fact that a lot of them are actually playing, we're up to almost 20,000 users daily now. That's a ton of data. That's a ton of feedback. That's a ton of ways, and that's a ton of comments. And then we get tickets, and we see what the bugs are, and we're able to focus in on the most important bugs first. The fact that we're able to get so much support, so much playtime, so much data that we can then use to improve the game and create a better game for the future. It's much, much harder to get in Web 2. That's kind of a sad fact. Basically, what people see is only the viral hits, but they don't see all of the millions of games or thousands of games that don't make it. And what's really interesting about Web3 is because that incentive is built in, you get that initial player boost that are going to help you as a developer create a better game. So I think it's kind of a win-win scenario.
Yeah, I was about to say that exact thing. It's a win-win scenario because, look, I love, for example, Age of Empires, right? But if I could have gotten tokens for just doing something I love and I'm passionate about and I love the game, that would have been great. It's win-win. And you brought up an interesting concept of universal gaming income, and these are some of the things I've been talking about. In addition to UBI and the metaverse and people having to earn in the metaverse. So do you see gaming, I know we're still in the early stages, going more into the metaverse as we have these headsets get more sophisticated?
Well, the headset, I'm not so bullish on the headset itself. I think we're gonna eventually, how Asia skipped the credit card in a way. They just went straight from cash to mobile phones. I think that same's going to happen with VR and AR. There's going to be something that comes along in 5-10 years that's just going to make the hardware obsolete in a way, or that's just to get rid of that problem. I've developed stuff for VR, but I'm not just a huge fan of it because I think the helmet gets too cumbersome. But yes, in terms of do I think that most people are going to make a living out of digital ecosystems in the future? 100%. I definitely think it's already happening, like Gen Z or Gen Alpha now, right? I'm a millennial myself, but Gen Alpha, you ask them what they want to be, in our generation, it was fireman or president or filmmaker. That was our vibe. But now it's all content creator, it's esports star, it's streamer, YouTuber, game dev, probably a few, but it's all shifted, and I think it's for the better. A lot of people are scared about it, a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's really quite exciting, and I'm really excited about what Gen Alpha is going to come with for the products they develop, because they're probably already starting now, and with AI it's so easy now to get started developing stuff. But essentially they're plugged in, and the more plugged in you are, the easier it is to create wealth out of these ecosystems.
Now, walk me through a bit of the process, because I want to make sure folks who are watching and listening understand the future capabilities of Web3 gaming. So let's say I'm in the game, I'm playing, I'm doing my thing, I'm earning tokens, right? Now, as a user, I can take those tokens and reinvest it in the game, buy things and so forth. But I can also go sell those tokens in the open market, and make an income. Is there in the planning in the future the ability to stake or lend, with DeFi capabilities? So maybe I just hold those tokens or some of it, and I'm earning some sort of passive income on it.
Yeah, so obviously we're very careful with how we word this, because obviously we don't want to guarantee profits or earnings or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, you are playing a game.
Right.
And us as game designers, it's really our job to create the best game possible and to create the healthiest game economy possible, but then also provide off ramps and opportunities for users to monetize their attention, monetize their asset if they can. So I think for us, the game itself, it's about play the game as much as possible, get as many resources as possible, use those resources in a smart way, whether it is to get heroes or whether it's to steal resources from others or whether it's to ally yourself with other players and get as powerful as you want inside of the game. That's really the core for the game itself. Then through airdrops, through leaderboard, through certain mechanics, you can also win some tokens, essentially get some tokens that way. But it's never guaranteed. And that's a very big part of it, is you do have to put in a lot of time or a lot of skill or a lot of assets into the game to actually be able to get access to those. But then, yes, what we've developed is a system where you actually lock your tokens for an extended period of time to get in-game influence and in-game power. And essentially that way you can become more powerful. But again, if you become too powerful, someone else is going to challenge you and try to get what's yours, right? So what we're really trying to create is an ecosystem where there are winners and there are losers. And that's a very important part of having a healthy economy. I win because a problem with a lot of Web3 games that came out in 2021, not only in the way they actually worked, but also in the way they were marketed, is everybody wins. Like you play to earn, you get profit no matter what. And that's why I'm very careful about that language, because at the end of the day, it doesn't work like that. Like it does either becomes a Ponzi, or you need to find a way so that actually there are revenue streams that go. And so the way we're trying to do it is you have a lot of free players who come in, they play the game for free. That's a very important part of it. You don't have to pay to play. You can play for free. You can get better and better. If you're really skilled, you will find ways to earn some tokens inside of the game. Or if you have some assets to deploy, you can actually deploy in the game and probably have a better chance of winning them inside of the game. But then most importantly, those with a lot can actually subsidize those with not as much to go and perform actions that are going to benefit those who sponsor them, right? And then, of course, they all go to war against each other, and then there are going to be some losers and some winners, right? And so to answer your question, it's never going to be a straight line. And any game that promises, oh, it's a straight line, do this, do this, do this, and then you will earn, I would be very cautious with, actually, because it never works out that way.
No, I love that. It mimics the real world economy. Like you said, there's winners and losers, and you can pay people to do things, right? So it's interesting. There's so many layers to that, like an entrepreneurial aspect to it, right? And like running a business or economy, you're paying people. So that's fascinating, and I'm just excited for the future of how these things are going to mature and play out, and how it's going to impact the economy and helping people to earn, and it's just, yeah, I'm just very fascinated by it as someone who used to play games. Now, what's on your roadmap? What can we expect in this year?
Yeah, so we just launched our season 1, which was quite a success, as I mentioned. Now we're working on our season 2, which is launching quite shortly, within a couple of weeks. After season 2, we're going to launch our dynasty system. Our dynasty system, you'll be able to take your heroes. You'll be able to go on missions. You'll be able to duel against other heroes. Heroes will start dying, which is NFT permadeath, essentially. So a lot of NFT games have had the problems where there's like mass inflation of NFTs and they go on forever. We have had quite a lot of NFTs being minted by our users. I'm a big believer in dynamic NFTs that are created by users. But now that we're adding death, we're actually going to start seeing the other end as well. And users are essentially going to be incentivized to kill off their heroes. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how many of them actually do it versus how many don't. And also, as we're adding death, what we'll start adding is the ability for heroes to get married and have babies. So all of that is coming in Q2. And after that, we're going towards stronghold battles, which are going to be large-scale battles, which are also coming this year. So overall, pretty packed roadmap. And of course, our token launch, which is going to happen this year. I can't say exactly when, but it's definitely in the pipeline and lots of work being done there. And most importantly, users who are playing now, who are active, who are really following and up to speed to what's going on in the community, have chance to get tokens before it even launches via the in-game game drops.
That's great. And to confirm, and it's maybe a silly question, you're available worldwide for the most part. Anyone who has internet connection can participate, right?
Correct. All you need to do is go on the Epic Game Store, and the game is free. So anybody can download the game and play for free and get started. You just need a pretty good PC to play.
Cool. Let's talk about the crypto market at large. Given your background, getting in 2017, the Bitcoin ETFs have been incredible. The inflows and have been record breaking, and the price of Bitcoin has been rallying. What are your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETF performance?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's great to see. I think everyone in the space is kind of shocked how fast everything has happened. It's good to see. Also, obviously, always a warning to newcomers to approach with caution, because obviously this is great and it feels great and everyone's really excited, but it can also turn quickly. So just a word of caution to everyone who's entering the space. Take your time, learn. Don't have too much FOMO. There's always going to be more opportunities. I think that's important. But overall, I'm very excited. Our team's been in this since 2018, building full time, and that, how hard the bear markets are, these kind of days when everything's great, that makes up for it. Overall, we have a lot of things to look forward to. ETFs are very likely coming. I don't know if it's this year or next year. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that should be big. I mean, I'm more on the gaming side myself, so I'm definitely not a financial analyst or a bank titan, but I would say this year or next year, we're going to start seeing games that hit into the million monthly active users. And that's going to be the game changer, because right now the institutions are going into it, and that's obviously huge, and that's going to have a lot of impact, especially on the big assets like Bitcoin and ETH and others. But once we start seeing games that are able to create retail adoption out of nowhere where it didn't exist before, I think that's when things are going to get really, really interesting.
Hard question for you, because you were mentioning the rise of these gaming communities and active users and so forth. When do you think the traditional game makers, if you can call them that, the ones that made Call of Duty and other games, right, will start to pay attention to Web3 and be like, oh man, we better get on board here because we're going to miss the train. This is obviously the future. When do you think they're going to have that aha moment?
Yeah, well, I think they've all already had it. I mean, they're all paying attention to it. They're seeing. I mean, we have in BLOCKLORDS 3 investors that are like Web2 giants. Like Square Enix, FunPlus, Krafton. They're all in the project, and they're all looking at it. I would say right now, every major Web2 publisher or developer has at least considered or has a division that's looking into it. Now, does that mean anything's going to happen soon? Probably not. Most of these companies are public companies.
Sure.
Public companies have to be very, very careful with anything they do, anything that could be misconstrued or anything that could be seen as affecting the stock price negatively, right? So there's just going to be a lot more caution. Also, in general, they just don't understand it as well. And if they don't understand it, they're just not going to handle it as well. And I would say we're going to see more and more experiments. I think Ubisoft already announced, right, that they're doing something with IMX. Recently, that was a few months ago. So you've seen Ubisoft. I mean, Square Enix is definitely deep in it. I know a few projects that I probably can't talk about that are in it as well. So you're going to start seeing it. As for a full AAA game or of the million users game I mentioned, you're probably that's going to come natively, I think, and once that happens, then the big ones will start doing that. Does that make sense? So the first it'll have to happen kind of from one of, someone like our team, someone who's like funded by VCs, who kind of makes it happen over the years, and definitely not easy. But then once there's that proven success that has mainstream appeal, that's when you start seeing everyone else piling in. And of course, Steam. I mean, if Steam were to accept NFTs today, that would change a lot as well.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great point. And it just takes one game to have a huge success, and then the others are going to start paying attention. Game theory will play out, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about NFTs, because we saw, obviously, the game integrates NFTs, but let's talk about NFTs at large, where we saw it was more of collectibles in the past cycle. But we're starting to see dynamic NFTs, as you mentioned before, NFTs that unlock utility and benefits and perks. What is your outlook for the NFT market? Do you see the next phase, and maybe that's the maturation, going beyond collectibles, but more utility?
Yeah. I mean, that's been my thought since the beginning. We were very early with DeFi NFTs when I started Seascape, which was a DeFi NFT infrastructure. I would say the market is moving there. The only problem with dynamic NFTs is because they don't have most of them don't have set collection numbers, right? It becomes much harder for speculators to value it, right? Like the reason PFPs were doing so well 2021, I mean, A, there was a lot of liquidity in the market that wanted to go to NFTs, but B, the PFPs were just so easy to value because you have 10,000 of them. They're all more or less the same, except for some small random stats that don't really matter because there's no product associated with it. And then, you put celebrities on that pushing it, and then they would do well, right? That was kind of the formula. And it worked very similar to the ERC20s of 2017. So I think, what is missing from dynamic NFTs, or more, more inflationary collections, you could say, something like Axie, something like what we have. I mean, most gaming NFTs have to be like that, because if you say there's only X amount, then you limit your user base to only X amount, right? And that's not going to work. So it's going to come down to what's going to make Web3 gaming work, right? You need like that driven gamers demand, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, just looking at us, our game, we have the farmers, right? And the farmers are $3 floor price, I think $2 to $3 usually. But then we have the unique heroes, and they have, I think, floor price of 17,000 right now. So dollars. So that's how it's done, right? It's like you have different types of NFTs that have different types of values to the gamers, and then really it is up to the market and the gamers themselves to determine that value.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see this next phase for NFTs, and I've been talking a lot about it on the podcast, and obviously trying to see what is like another major use case where NFTs can be inserted, whether it be, I don't know, in the car industry or healthcare or whatever it may be. I think it's coming, but we gotta wait.
I mean, it's anything. Like, to me, the comparison I made, is back in 2021, people saw NFTs as Picassos, right? And every Picasso was unique and very expensive and all of that. But I see it more like a plastic box. Like, you can put anything inside of your NFT. It can be something physical. I think DePIN has some limitations that it could definitely take off, but I don't see it quite taking off as the digital realm. But yeah, it could literally be anything. That's the thing. So any product that could be interesting, you're going to be able to put it into an NFT.
For sure. Now, this technology is growing at a rapid pace, and we're seeing countries around the globe are putting together crypto regulations. The EU put the MiCA regulations. The UK did theirs. The US has some bills in the House. Obviously, you're not in the US, but what are your thoughts on global crypto regulations that are coming? Obviously, we want balanced regulations. It protects innovators, but also protects consumers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, regulation's needed. It's too slow happening. I think everyone in the space wishes there were clearer regulations around. Looking at regular gaming, free to play still doesn't have really solid regulation around it. Social media doesn't have solid regulation around it. people are taking AI seriously, which is nice. So there's bound to be some regulation around it. I mean, for us as a project, it's not much we can do except follow the rules, you know. So
Right.
as long as you give us clear rules, we'll follow them. But yeah, I would urge every country to take gaming and Web3 very seriously and try to put in business friendly and consumer friendly regulations in place as fast as possible, because the wait is what makes innovation harder and harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you just mentioned AI. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on the impact of AI with gaming. I don't know what that looks like or what it could look like, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's huge. Concept art is essentially now entirely done with Midjourney and similar tools. Content creation, scripts both for our visuals and for our in-game content, all done with AI now. Not when I say all done with AI, generated by AI, but then verified and improved by
Right.
humans, which probably won't be needed in a few years. It's funny. I was telling my art director 5 years ago, even more. Yeah, 2017. I told him this. Yeah, one day I'll be able to replace you by AI, kind of jokingly. And he didn't believe it. He was like, that's never going to happen. And now, I mean, we're at a point where we're not going to replace him. But it's pretty crazy how fast it's gone. And I mean, obviously it's scary for everyone how it's going to be in 5 years. But, as a business owner, as a founder, it is pretty incredible that we're able to be more efficient and be able to do a lot more. And yeah, I kind of wish I had that always, but probably it's good I didn't. So I learned how to vet it a bit better. But yeah, for example, in game design, my co-founder Nikki, he's built a full-on BLOCKLORDS game design guru that's helping us with all of our tables, all of our configurations, a lot of our content. And we are looking for ways to add AI directly into the game to generate content. That is a bit challenging and also slow, so we're kind of trying to find the best way there. But yeah, I think overall it's a huge benefit to us as a business and to the consumers. And yeah, pretty excited to see what comes out next, and also pretty excited to see what products we can create, because I think everyone's going to have to do it to stay competitive.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. As you're saying that, I'm thinking of, playing a game and I have an AI assistant in the game, maybe
Yeah,
suggesting strategies and things like that. But it's more customizable based on what's happening because the AI is processing the information faster than
yeah,
I can. I don't know, but it seems like something might be down in the road.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Awesome. I got some wrap-up questions here for you. First is, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
I mean, this is the theme I like,
Yeah,
medieval warfare. That would definitely be the theme. So just,
awesome.
I mean, maybe Roman Empire, either Roman
Yeah,
Empire or medieval stuff. That
I,
would be it.
I figured. I figured. Since this is the theme of the game, um, rapid fire questions. Favorite food?
Favorite food, I'd say sushi.
Favorite musician or band?
Oof. Let's say Mozart. Let's go classic.
Nice. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie, Clockwork Orange.
That's a good movie too. Favorite book?
Favorite book, I'm gonna say Siddhartha.
Hmm. And when you're not doing anything at Blockworks, what are you doing for fun as a hobby?
I like playing the uke. I like music. Trading crypto, obviously, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I'd say walk my dog and be with my wife.
Awesome. David, I am excited for the future updates around Block Lords, and I'm going to have to start playing this game. And I love the concept of Web3 merging with gaming here. I would love to have you back on in the future, as things
Yeah, of
progress. But
course.
thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.